Accidental Inventions Part 1. Percy Spencer, an American engineer, invented the microwave in 1945 while working with a radar set that emitted microwave signals. Spencer noticed that a candy bar in his pocket was melting and discovered that the radar's magnetron tube was heating the chocolate. He began experimenting by directing the magnetron tube at foods like eggs and popcorn, and eventually created a metal box to contain the microwaves he tested. His hypothesis: by placing eggs in corn near the magnetron, and when the eggs began to cook and the corn began to pop, Spencer went on to develop a rough model of the first microwave. Part 2. Play-Doh was accidentally invented by McVicker, who worked for his family's soap company in the 1930s. Play-Doh started as a wallpaper cleaner. McVicker learned from a teacher that kids usually found modeling clay too hard to manipulate, discovering that the squishy cleaning product he manufactured could substitute modeling clay. Part 3. Harry Coover accidentally invented super glue in 1942 while working on a research team to develop clear plastic gun sights for World War II. The team discovered a chemical compound that bonded to metal and plastic very quickly and strongly, but initially saw no use for it in their research. The compound cyanoacrylate was too sticky to use, so Coover and his team abandoned it. But in 1951, Coover filed a patent for the same compound and named it super glue, along with Eastman Kodak researcher Fred Joyner's super glue has many uses, including stopping bleeding in cuts to joining and repairing. General commercial applications. Part 4. Brothers John Harvey and W.K. Kellogg accidentally invented cornflakes in 1898 while making a granola recipe. The brothers were working with wheatmeal for patients at a sanitarium when they left a batch of dough out overnight, and it fermented. When they rolled out the dough into thin sheets and baked it, they were surprised to find that it had become crispy flakes. W.K. Kellogg then decided to try flaking corn, which resulted in cornflakes, and decided to use it as breakfast. Part 5. Richard James, a naval mechanical engineer, invented the slinky in 1943. James was working on springs to keep ship equipment steady at sea during World War II when he accidentally knocked a spring off a shelf in his home laboratory. The spring then stepped in a series of arcs, recoiled itself, and stood upright. James' wife Betty realized the device's potential as a plaything and came up with the name Slinky. James spent a couple years experimenting on the right type of steel wire, created a coil of wire, a pre-compressed helical spring that is flexible and highly elastic, and then created a Philadelphia-based company, James Industries, to produce the toy. Part 6. Pharmacist John Pemberton accidentally invented the syrup for Coca-Cola on May 6, 1886. He was not a chef or even in the food industry. Rather, the soda's inventor was a pharmacist by the name of Dr. John Stith Pemberton, who was seeking to create a cure for cocaine addiction and headaches-filled alcoholic drink that people with addictions and headaches, including himself, could use to wean off of other drugs. However, when alcohol prohibition hit, Pemberton was forced to take the alcohol out of his formula, though the cocaine remained for decades, and thus the first bottle of Coca-Cola was made in 1886 in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Pemberton's lab assistant then accidentally mixed the two ingredients, coca leaves and cola nuts, into a syrup that he mixed with carbonated water, resulting in the world's first Coca-Cola. Accidental Inventions Part 7. In 1968, Dr. Spencer Silver, a chemist at 3M, accidentally invented Post-it notes while trying to create a stronger adhesive for the aerospace industry. Silver discovered a new adhesive that was sticky enough to stick to objects, but also had a removability characteristic that allowed it to be peeled off repeatedly without damaging the surface. This adhesive, made of microspheres, is also pressure sensitive and low tack, allowing notes to be repositioned multiple times. Part 8. George Crumb, who was a chef at the Moon's Lake House in New York, accidentally invented potato chips in 1853. After a guest at the restaurant kept returning potato fries, claiming that they weren't crisp enough, Crumb sliced the potatoes thinly, fried them in hot oil, and added salt. Subscribe and like for more dope vids. Part 9. In 1928, Dr. Alexander Fleming, a bacteriologist at St. Mary's Hospital in London, accidentally discovered penicillin while working with staphylococcal bacteria in a petri dish. Fleming left an uncovered petri dish of bacteria cultures next to an open window. When he returned from vacation, he noticed mold growing on the plate. Fleming observed that the bacteria near the mold colonies were dying. He isolated the mold and identified it as a member of the Penicillium genus. Fleming extracted a chemical from the mold and named it penicillin, which he believed could kill bacteria. Fleming published his discovery in the British Journal of Experimental Pathology in 1929. It took more than a decade to purify penicillin and prepare it for clinical use. By 1943, the United States and Great Britain were working together to produce penicillin, which helped make it available to Allied soldiers during World War II. Fleming, a World War I veteran who had seen many soldiers die from bacterial infections, believed that penicillin could also save the lives of wounded soldiers. Part 10. Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen, a German physicist, accidentally discovered X-rays in 1895 while experimenting with cathode rays and fluorescence in a vacuum tube in his lab at the University of Würzburg. Röntgen covered the cathode tube with black paper to test if cathode rays could pass through glass. He noticed a green light escaping from the tube and shining on a nearby fluorescent screen. He also noticed that the light passed through most substances but left shadows of solid objects on a nearby light-sensitive paper. Röntgen called the rays X-rays because of their unknown nature. Röntgen's discovery led to major advances in science and medicine, including the development of X-rays as a vital diagnostic tool. For example, dentists can use X-rays to detect cavities, gum disease, and bone loss, which can help them provide more effective treatment. X-rays also led to the development of other technologies, such as magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, and computed tomography CT. Subscribe and like for more dope vids.